YouTube! I was planning on putting this video off, but I've actually had a lot of people coming in from Give Me a Flankman's and Hugo Simon's channel, so thanks guys! Thanks Victor, and thanks Hugo for having me on y'all's channel. I really appreciate it. And I've already gotten the comment, somebody was like, I saw you on the 2.5 Oyaji show, and then I saw your recent video talking about like women and stuff, and like, this really wasn't what I was expecting on your channel. Actually, and you shouldn't have been. That was sort of a breakaway. So let's get back to what this channel was originally about, and that would be Tokyo Tales. Dun, 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 dun. So back when I was 20 years old. I was in my third year of college, and I came to study abroad in Tokyo. And my living arrangements were that I was living in a student dormitory, but there are in Tokyo there are a lot of housing restrictions. Like, I wasn't able to get into a dorm on campus. There just wasn't any room at my university. So what I did, sorry, it's really hot in here. I take off my jacket, but what I did was I found there's like a lot of private companies that run dorms for students, and not just like exchange students, but just any students who want to experience dorm life. And the arrangement at my dorm was I was living in, I had like a little studio room. It didn't have like any, it had like an air conditioner and internet connection, and then we had a cafeteria. And like our rent included breakfast and dinner, which is really cool. It was actually a really good way for me to experience all kinds of Japanese food, because the dorm was not run with foreigners in mind. It was run with Japanese people in mind. So I was eating like kind of usual kind of Japanese meals every day, which was really cool. And we had a sento, like a public bath as well, that I used a couple times. We also had just a shower room too that I use most of the time. Today, what I want to talk about is the importance of having resolve. It's really important to have resolve, and to, if any of you see any problem, just take it head on. Take it head on. I'm going to start my story. I was living in my dorm. I was on the first floor, and probably within the first week, something strange happened, and I kind of put it off. And I was sleeping, and at about 5 a.m., my window opens. And this Japanese girl pops in, and she's like, "Sumimasen, darerare no heya desu ka?" And she's basically asking, like, is this so-and-so's room? And I was basically, I was kind of sleeping. I was like, oh, she lives over there, wrong room. And she's like, "Suterei shimashita." And she closes the window. And it took me about 30 minutes, but I woke back up, realized somebody just opened the window to my room and asked me something. Now, why this struck me as odd is because there was probably a 8 or 9 foot barbed wire topped fence right outside of my room. So I was like, what? Now here's something to note. A lot of dormitories in Japan have curfews. You don't have to be back by the curfew, but if you're not going to be back by the curfew, at least the rule in our dorm is that you had to call the dorm manager and tell them, like, I'm going to be 20 minutes late, I'm going to be 30 minutes late. Usually they'll leave the door open for you. If not, you had to, like, fill out a form and say, oh, I'm going to be gone all night and I'm going to stay at so-and-so. Just, they know where they are, because basically they're accounting for you. And, but I was basically playing the system because my friend lived in the dorm with me. She lived on the 3rd floor, and if I just came in late, they lock the door after the curfew, so you cannot come in or like well, at first you could get out, but you couldn't come back in. It was just standard lock and switch lock on the door. So I would usually just email my friend on my cell phone and be like, hey, I'm home, and she would come home and open the door for me, and when you come down and open the door for me, I'd just come in. But I think my dorm manager caught on to that, and like, I guess he was really pissed off by it. He didn't say anything to me, but so I had gotten into this habit of coming home a little bit late, and so I was coming home late one time, and I mailed my friend as she came down to open the door for me, and it had 2 handles, and there was a chain wrapped around the handles, padlocked. The thing was freaking deadlocked. There's no way you could get in, there's no way you could get... God help those girls if there was a fire. They all would have died. But that's the way the manager started locking the door after a while. So I was like, oh, shit, what do I do? So I was able to open the door like this much, and I slid my room key into my friend, and I said, go unlock my room and unlock my window. I'm gonna find a way to basically break and enter into my own room. So I went around and I took a look at my room's in the first floor. So I took a look at it and I was like, yeah, it's about 8-9 foot fence here, and it's covered in barbed wire. Like, how am I gonna get over this? And I hoed and I hummed over it for a little while, and I noticed that we also live across the street from the police station, and there was a police officer just kind of watching me, like, and I think they realized I live there because they saw me like walking in and out of the place every day. So um, the police officer didn't do anything as the rest of this event happened. I basically figured, I was like, well, might as well try to scale the fence. I know it's covered in barbed wire, so I was like, oh, what do I do about this? And I was like, think positive, think positive, think positive. What can I do with the barbed wire? I realized I was wearing a coat. So I took my coat off and I threw it over the barbed wire. And the fence itself, like the links in it, were really small. So there's no way you could really get your feet into it. So you would really have to scale the thing. I can get my fingers into it a little bit. So I took off my shoes, I stuffed my socks into my shoes, and I threw them over the fence. And I threw my bag over the fence, and I made sure my coat was laid out over the barbed wire. So I was able to actually scale the fence, flip myself over the barbed wire without cutting myself, jump down, open my window, and then hop into my room. This was amazingly a lot easier than I originally anticipated. So, to be honest, I probably committed a breaking and entering about 3 to 4 times a week for about a year. The police sat there and watched me the whole time doing it. Almost every time I did, they didn't care because they obviously knew I lived there. But that's how I tackle my problems. There's a fence with barbed wire, you scale it. Is there a deadlocked door? You break and enter into your own room. Now, just as an advisory, I do not actually advise you to break and enter. I was actually gently opening my window from the inside, and I was going into my own room. I am not advising anyone to break into anyone else's home or place. I'm just gonna put that in there so nobody... But I think I set a good example for myself. If there's a wall, you bulldoze it. If there's a cake, you eat it. That's how problems are solved.